For centuries, two completely different worlds drifted toward an inevitable collision. On one side, the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the largest and most organized force the ancient world had ever known. A colossal entity, stretching from the Indus Valley to the shores of the Aegean Sea, vast, multicultural, and governed by a single, seemingly invincible authority. On the other side, a collection of small, independent Greek city-states, fiercely autonomous, often divided among themselves, yet bound by a common language, shared gods, and a radical, burgeoning idea: the right to self-rule. The clash between these two civilizations was far more than a sequence of battles. It wasn't just about territory or resources. It was a confrontation of ideologies, a struggle between centralized imperial power and decentralized civic freedom. This monumental conflict became a turning point, a crucible that would forge the very foundations of Western civilization. And the legendary stand of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, immortalized in story and film, was merely one chapter in this much grander, more complex epic. It was only the beginning. Before we embark on this epic journey through one of history's most defining conflicts, take a moment to support our channel. Please leave a like, share this video with fellow history lovers, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more deep dives like this. Your support helps us bring these incredible stories to life. Now, let's set the stage. To understand this war, we must travel back to the 5th century BC. The Mediterranean was a world in turmoil, a chessboard of rising and falling powers. Dominating this landscape was the Persian Empire, a powerhouse built by Cyrus the Great. But its expansion wasn't solely based on military might. The Persians were brilliant administrators. They built the Royal Road, a highway that allowed for rapid communication and trade across their vast domain. They practiced a form of religious and cultural tolerance, allowing conquered peoples to maintain their local customs as long as they paid their taxes and remained loyal. This created a relatively stable, diverse empire, a tapestry of dozens of different cultures, languages, and beliefs, all woven together under the rule of the King of Kings. Their expansion westward, across Asia Minor, brought them to the edge of the Greek world, to the Ionian coast, where Greek cities had thrived for generations. And what of the Greeks? They were the complete opposite. There was no Greece in the way we think of a nation today. The Greek world was a fragmented collection of over 1,000 independent city-states, or poleis. Each polis was its own country, with its own government, army, and laws. They were united by a shared Hellenic culture, the same language, the same mythology, the same Olympic Games, but politically, they were often bitter rivals. Think of Athens, the cradle of a new, radical idea called democracy, where citizens debated and voted on the laws of their city. Then there was Sparta, an austere, militaristic society where life revolved around the state and the army. And then there was Corinth, a wealthy trading hub, and Thebes, a regional power with its own ambitions. These cities fought each other as often as they traded with each other, their internal rivalries a constant feature of Hellenic life. The spark that ignited this world-altering war came from a seemingly local dispute. The Greek cities in Ionia, on the coast of modern-day Turkey, had fallen under Persian rule. Resenting the loss of their independence and the heavy taxes, they rose in revolt. Seeking aid from their mainland cousins, they found a willing partner in Athens. The Athenians, protective of their own democratic ideals and perhaps seeing an opportunity to weaken a rival, sent ships and soldiers to support the Ionian rebels. From the Persian perspective, this was an unacceptable act of aggression. A minor internal rebellion had just been escalated by an outside power. King Darius the Great would not let this challenge to his authority stand. A seemingly small political decision had just lit a flame that would soon rage across seas and continents, setting the stage for a conflict that would echo for centuries. The first major confrontation came at Marathon in 490 BC, determined to punish Athens for its interference. Darius sent a massive expeditionary force across the Aegean Sea. The Persian army, vastly outnumbering the Athenians, landed on the plain of Marathon, just 26 miles from the city. Athens was in a panic. They sent a runner, Phidippides, on his legendary run to Sparta to ask for help. But the Spartans were in the middle of a religious festival and could not march. Athens and its small ally Plataea would have to face the Persian juggernaut alone. Yet at Marathon, sheer numbers were not the deciding factor. The Athenian general Miltiades used his brilliant understanding of the terrain and tactics. He strengthened the flanks of his hoplite formation, drawing the Persian center inward, and then enveloped them in a pincer movement. The disciplined Greek infantry, with their heavy shields and long spears, proved devastatingly effective against the more lightly armed Persian forces. The result was a stunning, almost unthinkable victory for Athens. The Persians were driven back to their ships and forced to retreat. The Battle of Marathon was more than a military triumph. It was a massive psychological victory, proved that the mighty Persian Empire was not invincible. 10 years later, the Persians returned, this time with a vengeance. Darius's son, Xerxes, amassed the largest army and navy the world had ever seen, determined to crush Greece once and for all. He built a bridge of boats across the Hellespont and marched his army into Greece by land, while his enormous fleet sailed alongside. Faced with this existential threat, a small alliance of Greek city-states, led by Sparta, decided to make a stand. They chose a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. This hot gates was a strategic bottleneck, where the massive Persian numbers would count for little. For 3 days, a small Greek force, led by King Leonidas and his 300 elite Spartan warriors, held back the entire Persian army. Thermopylae was never about winning the battle. It was about sacrifice. It was about buying precious time for the rest of Greece to mobilize, about inspiring unity in the face of annihilation, and about sending a clear message: even the greatest empire on earth would have to pay for every inch of Greek soil and blood. With the land army delayed but ultimately victorious at Thermopylae, the fate of Greece now rested on its navy. The Persian fleet sailed south, aiming to destroy the Athenian ships and support their army's final advance. The Athenian statesman Themistocles, a brilliant and cunning strategist, knew their only hope was to fight in another narrow space. He evacuated the population of Athens and lured the Persian fleet into the tight straits of Salamis. In these confined waters, the larger, more numerous Persian ships couldn't maneuver effectively. They became disorganized and were easy targets for the more agile Greek triremes, which rammed and boarded them with brutal efficiency. At Salamis, strategic intelligence and knowledge of the sea completely outweighed numerical advantage. The sea itself became the stage for the war's decisive turning point. Xerxes, watching from a throne on a nearby hillside, saw his navy shattered. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. The decisive victory at Salamis crippled the Persian naval support, forcing Xerxes to retreat to Asia with a large part of his army. He left behind his general Mardonius, with a still formidable force to finish the conquest the following year. The final, epic land battle of the invasion took place at Plataea in 479 BC this time. It wasn't just a small contingent of Greeks. It was the largest Greek army ever assembled, with hoplites from Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and dozens of other cities fighting side by side. For the first time, the perennial Greek rivalries were set aside for a common cause: survival. At Plataea, the united Greek forces decisively crushed the remaining Persian army, killing Mardonius and ending the invasion for good. This victory was more than just a military conclusion. It was the moment the Greek city-states truly understood the immense power they held when they stood together. The consequences of the Greek victory were world-changing. Without the threat of Persian domination, Greece entered its golden age. Athens, now the leading naval power, formed the Delian League and built a maritime empire of its own. This newfound wealth and confidence fueled an unprecedented cultural explosion. It was in this period that philosophy flourished with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Drama was born with Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. Democracy was refined, and architectural marvels like the Parthenon were built. The ideas born in this small corner of the world democracy, philosophy, individualism, rational thought, would become the bedrock of Western civilization. Had the Persians won, world history would have been profoundly different. The political and cultural development of Europe would have followed a completely different path. Of course, the story of the Greco-Persian Wars has been told and retold. It's most famously in movies like 300. These adaptations are fantastic entertainment, but they often romanticize and simplify a much more complex reality. The movie portrays the Spartans as lone heroes fighting for freedom against a monstrous, enslaved horde. In reality, they were fighting alongside thousands of other Greeks at Thermopylae. The Spartans themselves were a slave-owning society. The Persians were not mindless monsters, but belonged to a sophisticated and ancient civilization. Exploring the differences between these modern narratives and the ancient sources from historians like Herodotus reveals a truth that is, in many ways, even more fascinating and compelling than any cinematic adaptation. In the end, the Greco-Persian Wars were not just ancient history. They were a clash of fundamental ideas that still resonate today. The conflict between a massive, centralized empire and small, independent communities. The struggle between absolute monarchy and the beginnings of citizen-led government. The choice between security under an emperor and the chaotic, dangerous pursuit of freedom. A legacy was forged in these battles, a legacy that has profoundly shaped human thought, politics, and our very definition of the West. It's a story of how a few small cities, against all odds, defended their world and in doing so, changed ours forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest conflicts, please show your support by leaving a like and sharing this video with other history enthusiasts. And you'd forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep exploring the monumental events that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.